Hey guys, welcome to JDUB-Woodworks. So this is part 2 of a series of 3 videos that I'm doing to walk you through the process of working with driftwood or dead wood from the time that you start carving and shaping it to the time that you actually are putting the final finishes on it. The first video was about carving and shaping. This video is about sanding and shaping. Both of those are critical stages whenever you're trying to create these abstract pieces or functional pieces for that matter. And so I've got the 3 pieces here. If you haven't watched the first video, you're going to want to see what these used to look like. In this video, granted, it's going to be a lot of sanding and shaping. The sanding's pretty boring. You'll get the idea real quick. But I'm just going to walk you through what I'm going to do with each one of them quickly, and then we'll get into the shaping piece of it. Okay, so stick around. You're going to learn a lot, and we're going to have some fun. Come on. All right, so first and foremost, I'm not going to make any assumptions about your knowledge of sanding. So we're going to go over some very basic steps and principles in regards to sanding. Number 1, what kind of sander do you use? Number 2, what the heck does grit mean? And then number 3, just how to work the tool. So we've got basically a orbital sander. This is a Craftsman. I've got a little Black & Decker vibrating sander. They come with those pads. You can purchase those pads separately. And the grit of the sandpaper is going to make the world of difference. So I usually start with a 60 grit. You can actually start with a 40 as well. The lower the grit number, the rougher the surface is going to be, and the rougher the paper feels. So if you see that, that's a 60 grit. When you get up to 280, 220 or 320, the higher the grit, the finer it is, the finer the finish, the smoother it becomes. You've got to progress through all of those, but it's up to you to determine how smooth you want it. I usually stop at 320, but if I really want to get a nice shine and a nice sheen, I'll go up to thousands, right? So it just depends on the piece, and it depends on what you want to accomplish with your piece. All right, so you can see that this piece is really rough. All I've done is use the grinder on this. And so when I talk about sanding and shaping, that's why I have a 60 grit, because it'll help me round out some of those edges. It'll help me knock off some of the rot, and certainly it will smooth out those surfaces. So let me show you real quick. I'm not going to be applying a lot of pressure. You need to let the tool do the work and the grit of the sandpaper to do the work. If I were to start on a 320 right here, I'm not going to accomplish very much, not at this stage. So I'm gonna back and forth at least 7 or 8 times, maybe in little circles. I use rounding techniques, but I don't just skip all over. I've got to be really intentional with where I'm putting the sander to accomplish what I want. So here we go. All right, so that's been just a few minutes, and that 60 grit has done exactly what the 60 grit piece of sandpaper is going to do. It has cleaned up a lot of the nicks. You saw that I was hitting those curves. Now granted, we're not there yet. You're going to continue to see some of this where you're getting into the multiple layers of the wood. You're going to see some of this, which is this discoloration. It can be part of the wood, but it also could be some spalting, like you see right here and right here. That could be left over from the fungus that actually may have killed this tree, or the tree just wasn't healthy. At any rate, you have to choose whether or not you're going to keep these, because I'll tell you right now, I could hit this with a 60 grit sandpaper all day long, and I may clean up this spot, but the deeper I get into the piece of wood, I may see it again. And it's the same with wormholes. You just have to decide what textures and colors you're going to be able to live with your piece. Now, granted, you get over into this, and you're going to have to do some serious work, okay? I will demonstrate that as well, because the 60 grit will clean this up, but I may end up having to take the carver back out and doing some additional carving. This is not a, I'm just doing this so it'll help the vision of how I want to complete the piece. Once I actually go, oh, this is how I want to go, I may pull out the carver and start carving some more out of this piece. I may shape this a little bit differently. So this stage of the process is sanding and shaping. That also means I may use the carver again and then go back and sand it again. So let me show you what I'm going to do right here with the 60 grit. All right, so you can see that that 60 grit has taken that really rough part that you saw, and it's not completely smooth, but it's manageable now. Now I do want to show you something else too. This part is so soft that that 60 grit, if I leave it in one place too long, you see this? It'll actually cause little ruts and crevices. So you've got to be careful moving your tool and not applying too much pressure. I did this on purpose because I wanted to show you that when you're dealing with some of the softer parts of the wood, granted, you're able to shape it with the sander, but you're also able to cause some ruts and divots and dings. So you just got to be careful on that. I'm not going to catch any more of this with the 60 grit. I'm just going to continue to work on this piece. I won't catch that on video, but I am going to start on the second piece. That way I can show you the techniques that I use there. All right, now I'm still going to use the 60 grit, and you can start to see that it's wearing over here. That's okay. You still got a lot of grit left. You do want to pay attention when it's wearing out here in the center, because the more it wears out, it can scuff the wood, but it can also hurt the pad that's underneath the sandpaper and make it to where it won't stick anymore. So just be aware of the condition of your sandpaper. All right, now this is the piece of mesquite, and if you remember, this was a nasty mess. I'm gonna go ahead and hit that with a 60 grit as well and start cleaning that up. Okay, so that's just been a few minutes. You can still see that I've got a little crack here. I've got this little hole here. That's okay, don't worry about it. But you can tell that, you know, where before you saw these hard lines from the grinder, now I'm getting into this part right here just to kind of bowl this out and shape it. And that's what I'm talking about shaping, is I'm just trying to still remove some of this dirty wood or this rotted wood. Certainly the rough spots, but any holes that I see, they might be a problem because they could always expand, they could go through. So just use caution, right? But you get the general idea. So people ask, well, when do you know it's time to switch to the next level of sandpaper? That's really going to be up to you. I look for just general smoothness as far as nicks. I'm looking for this kind of stuff left over from the grinder. I'm looking for any of this kind of this brittle wood. I want all that gone. And then that's when I reevaluate the piece and see if I want to bring out the carving unit again and maybe make this a little bit more extreme, maybe make this curve a little bit more precise. But that's not until after I get that 60 grit all over the wood, and then I kind of set it down, I have a cold beer, and then I think about it, right? I'm not going to catch the rest of this on video either, because we're getting to our third piece. This one's going to be a little trickier, so pay attention. Okay, so this is our cedar root, and you can tell why this one's going to be a little bit different. I am going to get everywhere on the surface that I can with this. But that's also why you have one of these as well as the old hand, right? So I hate to pull out the hand and do that, but because that is a time suck. But at any rate, there's a lot of detail in this. There's still going to be some opportunities for me to use the carver on this. I'm going to show you real quick, however, just what the 60 grit does, because again, every piece of wood is going to be a little bit different. Some are porous, some are harder. And you know, depending on the condition of the wood, that 60 grit will work. but I may have to switch to a 120 sooner than I thought. So let me just show you real quick right here. All right, we're getting there, but I need a new pad. So I'm losing all this edge right here, and that's really what I need to get into these little crevices and cracks, is I'm working that edge. That's why you see little pieces of paper flying off. So you just take that guy, I set it to the side because I may end up using it by hand. There's still some good stuff in there. All right, so you see that I'm rounding these things out, doing a lot of rounding here. I'm trying to work into this little corner, try to get this open. And so this is part of the shaping process, right? Whenever I've got these difficult spots to get into, I'll come back with the mini grinder or with a stiff wire brush and try to scrape it in there. I'll use my hand. I'll do just about anything to get that all cleaned up, but it does take time. This is a much harder piece of wood than the first one, so it's gonna take more time, but you can see the grain and the color. This is gonna be absolutely gorgeous when this thing gets finished and mounted. Likewise, I am gonna leave some of this charred, and quite frankly, I think I may even burn the bottom side of it once I'm done. And then there's some texture in here that I may leave because, again, I like to show the piece, some of it rough, some of it smooth. It blends really nice if it's done intentionally and purposefully. But hopefully this gives you a good idea of working on those three pieces. So now let's go to the next step. All right, so this is all part of sanding, but remember I talked about shaping and I didn't want to use the grinder anymore. I'm going to show you how you can use the 60 grit on an orbital to shape this into something that's going to be a little bit more appealing to the eye. Now granted, I've still got some of that discolored wood in here. I'm going to have to find a nice happy spot where that's not going to bother me anymore. It doesn't bother me right now, but if it could. So depending, if I wanted to get all of this off of there, who knows? I may not be able to because it may go all the way through. So let's go ahead and start shaping this with the sandpaper. You'll see me doing a lot of rounding. You'll see me doing a lot of end grinding. I got to get all of this stuff off, but I wanted to demonstrate how you do that on a piece. All right, that was a great example. What you saw right there was that little crack opened up, a piece fell out, and then I just had to take the whole thing down. I told you, right? If you think about creating something before you get to this stage, you're gonna get super frustrated because you're gonna come across that kind of stuff all the time. So I've got it workable now. Did I create anything? No, but I fixed this. I'm gonna continue to do that throughout the whole piece, okay? Not just on this one, but on the other two as well. And that means that over the next probably 2 to 3 weeks, I'm gonna be working on these pieces and getting them to a stage that is to where your vision starts to come alive, right? Now we've already got the one piece that I saw like a mesquite flame. So I know that one's gonna be that. The other one's kind of some abstract piece. This one I'm a little challenged with at the moment, but we're gonna work through it. Hopefully this demonstrated a lot of what I was talking about as far as shaping and sanding combined. Okay, listen, it's abstract art. It doesn't have to look like anything, but once you see something, it's hard to unsee it. And so the more and more I hold this piece like this, whether it's this way or this way, I do see some type of a driftwood fish. It doesn't have to look like that. I could mount it just like this, standing up, or I could put it on a wall. It's still gonna look nice, but I can't unsee this fish. Now, if I were to do that, however, I'm gonna end up having to carve out a lot of this piece that I like, I think. And it depends on how I shape the fish. So once you cut it, you can't uncut it, right? So I'm gonna cut a little bit larger than what I actually think I need. So maybe come all the way down to here and then trim right here, reevaluate at that point. So I know it's a risk, because once you do that, the piece could crack. You just never know, but I'm willing to take that risk. All right, pretty solid inside of there. But again, I was gonna have to cut off about that much of this. So now we see what we can do. Hey, I know I said this is sanding and shaping, but it's carving, cutting, sanding, and shaping. But that's the name of the game. Well, believe it or not, I just thought I had the camera on. I cut the head off, but I like the shape better. I'm sorry I didn't catch that on video because I was scared as hell to do it. Okay, so what I didn't catch on camera is about 10 to 12 hours of just sanding, going back and sanding, and more sanding and more sanding. I went from a 60 grit to a 120 grit on all of the pieces, and then I slowly started to get up around 220. And so 220 is where I stopped on all three of the pieces, because now I need to think about the next stage, which is going to be the fine sanding and the finishing. But I've got some things that I need to fix on all the pieces actually. And so let's start with our mesquite flame. So this is feeling really nice and smooth. You're still going to see a little bit of imperfection in some of the grain of the wood. I also have a little crack here. I've got some ant holes. I have a small crack, and I'm going to want to do resin in those. And so I stopped at 220 because the next thing that I have to do is do the resin, which is going to involve obviously the resin work, but also going back, sanding that. Then I'll take it to the final stage of a 320 grit, or maybe even higher on this particular piece, because mesquite looks fantastic when you get up into the 800 or 1000 grit sandpaper. You can really make this thing shine just on its own with maybe just a little bit of tung oil. So that's the stage that I've got this in before I get into the resin. My fish is a little different. So obviously this thing has changed dramatically. This is a significant crack. We knew that from the beginning, but I'm gonna have to fill this in with resin too. These two pieces are just about ready to fall apart. You can see how I'm squeezing those. And so resin is gonna be required there as well. I've got to fill in that crack, use my tuck tape to prevent it from dripping everywhere. And then once I have those pieces in, then I can get into the finer grit sandpaper. There's still a little bit of shaping left on this one, but I didn't want to do that without getting resin in that crack to stabilize it. For the other piece, this is a little bit different. I want to slide you over here. So this piece is really turning out to be pretty impressive. Again, you're going to see some rough areas that I chose to leave rough. There's still some little bitty marks that I see throughout the piece. Some of that is caused by my grinder. Some of it is just because that's how the wood was. It blends really nice, so even if I do see some grinding marks, I can take that off down the road. But I've got this underside that's super rough. You see that? And so what I'm going to do there is I'm going to take a torch and I'm actually going to burn the inside of this like a charcoal, and that will actually really clean up nicely before I do any of the final sanding and tung oil application or whatever finish I end up putting it on. So all three are at the final stage, but there's a little bit of work left to do, and you're going to find yourself in a similar situation with your piece. Do I have to burn the bottom side of that? Nope. Do I have to put resin in the ant holes? No, I don't. On the fish, yeah, unless I want two separate pieces. So you're just going to have to make that decision on your piece whenever you're working on it, and figure out if you want to go through the hassle of doing the resin. I'm new to resin. Well, I say new, 2 years, and I only know what I know. And so I get into certain situations and it doesn't turn out right. It could be frustrating. It's an expensive step, but with a little bit of practice and following all the instructions, that works out pretty well. Of course, it's 95, 97 degrees here in Central Texas. That doesn't do well with resin, but if I pour in the morning, I might be okay. So I wanted to go ahead and close with that because these three pieces are going to turn out quite well, and I wanted to catch that before we go. And as always, this is a process, it's a journey. Be patient, follow your steps, take a break, let the wood sit, you go sit, then come back and reevaluate what you want to do. So I thought that might be a useful tip for you. All right, and before I leave for this video, make sure you get a decent respirator. This is a 3M. I got it off Amazon. Links down below. Links to all the products that I use are down below, as well as check out our website. We've got a lot of apparel on our YouTube page down in the details. You can click on the store. You can get your JDUB hat and things like that. But these pieces are going to be my project for the next 2 to 3 weeks. I'll catch bits and pieces to add to the final video just as a refresher. But in the next video, number 3, that's when these pieces are going to be at their best, and we're actually going to put some finish on them and figure out how we're going to mount them. They're going to be amazing, just like you guys. So I appreciate everything. Give me a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. Send me comments. Tell me what was useful. Tell me, hey, this was dragging along, or anything, right? Anything to help. I'm doing this because so many people have reached out to ask, how do you do it? So I figured this would be a great way to do it. Break it into 3 different videos. The first one's kind of long, but at any rate, I think it's very, very informative, and it's what I do every time I'm working on a piece. So you guys take care. Cheers.